Greetings, everyone. This is Phil Amerson with another To Be and Do podcast, where we talk about the importance of interdependence along with independence. And we explore matters of community development and leadership. And today, we're going back to the beginning of this podcast. The very first person we interviewed was Jonathan Massimi in Kitchener, Ontario, and Jonathan has been working with Civic Bloom, but he's also, let me see, author, pastor, priest. I feel like candlestick maker. What
Right.
what else? Uh, Jonathan is one of those thinkers I always enjoy visiting with because he causes me to consider some of my earlier assumptions in a new way, or to find some meaning behind what's going on already in the life of churches or in community organizations. And I've gone on too long. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks, Phil. It's always great to chat and record
Yeah.
our chats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's a tariff yet on podcasts, but if Donald Trump tries to do that, we'll just break through anyway.
Yep, most definitely. But don't mention it too much. We might get flagged.
Hey, I'm already on the list, brother.
Yeah.
So, tell me what you're up to. I've got 4 or 5 topics in mind after we visited a little bit earlier, but, talk talk a bit about AI. Let's start there, and what you're thinking about that, and maybe your, graduate work that you're, beginning to anticipate.
Um. So how I got into exploring the topic? I was doing a course on Christian thought, and some of the students submitted some questions, and some of the questions were around AI. What does it mean to be human? How will this influence our faith? How can tools be used in appropriate ways? So that led to a class that I created called meaning, the meaning of life, and AI. So what I'm looking at more is what happens to community when tools are introduced. So it's not just AI per se. It's also looking at tools in general. And I know we talked about a bit about this last time when we think about Ivan Illich and even John McKnight. Like, what are the gifts present, or what are we introducing into the community, and what effects will it have? So it's not how we use the tools. It's what are the tools also doing to us. And one of the things that I did with as an experiment with the students was, how does AI relate to art? So, because I know many of them were trying to use AI on essays and such, and
Yeah.
so I started with something in the class very basic, and I had students and I had some prompts on the screen. I had them finger paint
Oh, wow.
in the literacy class, so they're finger painting and they're interacting with one another and adapting their art piece based on the conversations that are happening around them. There was like a buzz happening in the room, and people were, as they were creating, sharing their art pieces.
Wow.
Then the next level in this engagement, or within this class, I said, now look at what you've created and describe it and create prompts. So then they chose, ChatGPT or Gemini, or whatever platform they decide to use, and they began to describe their painting and asked AI to generate something.
Wow.
And what was generated was completely different than what they had created. Then I got them to upload pictures of their art, and with the prompts like create something completely new, something completely whatever. And then AI basically took what they did, enhanced some colors, and put a frame around it, right?
Wow.
But it wasn't the point of the exercise wasn't just okay, what is AI creating? I got them to reflect what was happening in the room. So when
Right.
they were finger painting, they were engaging and talking and sharing. As soon as it moved to, okay, now you're going to work on your computer to create an art piece, silence in the room. People were just glued to their screen. They weren't even aware of what others were up to. And there was also a frustration there where um, their prompts weren't creating what they actually desired. So
Wow.
they're like, "Well, I don't want that color. I don't want that image. I don't," and people were visibly frustrated because in a sense, they were outsourcing their creativity. They were noticing they no longer had this autonomy and agency. They were it was this mediated type of experience. So it the art that they first created was an outflow of themselves, and it was very much this tactile ability to actually feel the art, where when they were utilizing these technologies, that was lost. And then this frustration came into being. So it wasn't only shaping them in relation to art, but it was shaping their relationships to one another. And I think that's where it interests me around technology and community. And the area I'm looking to work in is community as a holder of memory. But more and more, we're uploading our memories where social media is just this giant archive, which determines what is remembered, how it's shared, and what authority these memories have. And when I look at like faith communities, and the church, we're the holder of memory. And what we do is tap into what God has done before, what God is doing now, and how is that leading us into the future. But if we're looking back, and our memories are just uploaded, so that's the other piece I talk about is the loss of artifact. Where are the artifacts? What are we actually holding on to? How are we creating our memory?
So,
Um, who do these memories belong to? And who determines what is remembered and what is forgotten?
wow.
So
So,
we as a community no longer have the power. It's algorithms that are telling us what to remember and and what is forgotten based on clicks and such. So that's kind of
so there'd
what's
be
been going.
no reason you would know this, but you have
Mm,
just, provided, well, I'll call it an accompaniment
mm,
to something I've just experienced. We had 16 pastors away on retreat, and my concern has been that they feel so isolated, so alone, and in many places under attack these days in the United States, in our culture.
mhm,
And we had the one we tried not to have many rules, but we asked them to follow the notion of no screen time while we're meeting together. You know, they had afternoons free. We encouraged them to take walks and do other things, but no screen time. And one of the exercises was share with the group a sacred artifact, a sacred object that helps keep you focused. That would be in terms of what you were just saying, an important memory that was life shaping. And we had the great benefit of having Ken Miedema, the musician, there, and they would share their story, and Ken would immediately improvise a musical piece that would capture that story in powerful ways. And what struck me was when you talked about the silence when they went onto the screen, we experienced a different kind of silence. And that was after a few of these stories and after Kenwood sang, we came to one of those thin places, a spiritual place, a place where the spirit was clearly working on this group. And there would be quiet for 3 or 4 minutes as people were experiencing coming close to some transcendent, place in their life. And so there is silence, and then there is silence.
Mhm.
And there are constructed realities that are so detached from the memories we carry.
Mhm.
Am I
Yeah.
close?
Yeah, and yeah, the memories we carry, are the memories we tend to carry are on our smartphones, right? We all
Mm.
have hundreds upon hundreds of pictures or videos or screenshots. Um, like my father-in-law was like an avid photographer. And when he passed, we had loads of pictures and slides and things to kind of thumb through memories and even the way those photos were kept, they were honored in some way. Like we'd print them, we put them in albums. Now, so if I would pass, my kids would need access to my phone and then scroll through a whole bunch of stuff, right? Um, so it's like how are we holding these memories? How are we honoring them? How are we centering them in our lives? So one of the things, and I like how you said like the the thin spaces or silence or a creative silence, right? So where God's doing a work. Um, the AI work I'm doing around discernment and also around experience, like Jesus makes the promise to us that he'll send the spirit, and the spirit's the paraclete, the one that comes alongside in leading us in truth. um More often I'm finding the one that's alongside is my phone in my pocket. And every time I have a question, I rely on it to lead me into some sort of truth. I'll Google it, or and now there's this other feature that we have where you can have an AI search where it basically um, categorizes everything for you, drawing on the various sites. We're not even clicking on sites anymore. It's just giving us summaries of how to think, or without giving too much thought to what the sources are
So
of.
so what's frustrated me, well, I wanna jump before we jump to linking this to Pentecostalism, because I wanna hear that. Um, I when I go and do searches, I find that I often know more or think I know more that I'm getting fed back from, Chat GP whatever, G so for instance, I'm working on a sermon and I'm looking at Colossians and I type in who wrote Colossians and immediately it comes back to me, Paul wrote Colossians. I know Paul didn't write Colossians, or I think he didn't. That's one option. Give me the other options. And I had to do like 4 or 5 searches and be very specific, you know, not everyone assumes that Paul wrote Colossians. What
Mhm.
so what's being fed in is coming from sources that are not ones that maybe are the most dependable or the
Yeah.
or the most helpful in terms of what I'm trying to discover.
Mhm. Yeah, and in that, it's saying, "Okay, what is this? What are these questions? What is this tool doing to me?"
Yep,
Right? So something that I have gotten into the habit of, not sure for the viewers, so a wristwatch. So what I was doing when I would have to check the time is look at my phone, and that glance at my phone slowly pulled me into a world of,
right.
oh, I see a email alert, or, oh, I wonder what's going on in social media. What's on the news? What war is emerging? Um, so I've moved to wearing wristwatches. Yes, I do need to know what time it is and where I need to be. But I've also added another feature to the watch. I get ones that require to be wound, so mechanical ones, right? Um, and I have a friend of mine. We sit and we talk about. He likes to collect watches, and one of a meditative practice that he has that I've incorporated. He goes, he'll sit, set his time, and slowly wind his watch, right?
Lovely.
And
Lovely.
and for me,
Yeah.
it's this recognition, um, even in my life. Maybe this is a little too deep for just the watch. People like, John, relax, it's the watch. Um, to say that I'm wound and I don't know when my time's going to end,
Mm.
right? And I also see the craftsmanship that goes into it, the care that goes into it, right? So, um, I've also collected some that are tied to stories. So I'm trying to have an element of artifacts in my life tied to memories. So this past summer, with my wife, we went on a riverboat cruise from Budapest to Prague, and um, on those travels, I picked up watches from the places that we stopped.
Mm.
So so there's stories tied to it, and recently given by my parents a watch that belonged to my great grandfather,
Mm.
right? So and then I have one from my grandfather when he passed. My mom gave it to me. And yeah, I'll look at the time, but remember this is my grandfather's watch. Um, but interesting when I celebrate like the Eucharist, and this is a practice I learned from one of my mentors. I remove my watch because I'm entering into a different time,
There you are.
right? Um, so, and this is the I couldn't get this level of reflection. I don't think by just glancing at my phone and seeing, what Trump is up to on Facebook or whatever, right? Uh, and such. But again, it causes you to, you know, the fact that I'm sitting, setting time, winding my watch, it slows me down to have a reflective moment. Um, and that's what I found with the students when we were doing the art piece. It was a reflective moment where they were feeling their way through the art and then connecting with others as they were doing it, where it becomes more difficult. And at the end, interesting, the class, I had students question the technology they were introducing to their lives, and some were going to there's different apps to block their phones, create a dumb phone or whatever. They started to use less of their technology in a class about AI because it started to freak them out as to what it was doing to them.
So, do you know John Paul Latourette has a book just out called "The Centuries Around Us,"
I haven't
and
read that.
well, I recommend it. It's a sweet. He's such a good writer, but he's talking about every moment. If you can baptize it as a holy moment, will allow you to think about all of the century before you that brought you to the place where you are, and then think about the century ahead, where your children and grandchildren or others who are young will be living, and how do you range across that reality of who you are as a human being?
Hmm.
And when you talk about watches, I'm already thinking of Latourette.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What has gone before and what goes ahead, right?
Right, right.
Hmm.
Well, we're going to stop right here and come back to you on the next episode, John. Uh, wow. We ought to do this more often. I learned so
Yeah,
much.
that's
Thank
always
you.
great. Thank you.
Jonathan Massimi, Civic Bloom, but also Anglican, also, well, so many things. It's great to visit with you every time we're together. This is Phil Amerson for the To Be and Do podcast. Take care, care for others. Remember the centuries around us.